former Soviet Premier Mikhail Gorbachev has died at the age of 91. He's best known for instituting a series of social reforms in the Soviet Union in the late 1980s. Those reforms contributed to the collapse of the Union, bringing an end to the Cold War. The hospital Gorbachev was staying at says he died after a long illness, but did not specify what kind of illness. Professor Brian Taylor joins us now. He teaches political science with a focus on Russian politics at Syracuse University. So, Brian, let's start history as a way of looking back at things and thinking they're inevitable. But how extraordinary was it, what Mikhail Gorbachev did?
I think the end of the Cold War and the collapse of the Soviet Union at the time it happened and the way it happened is completely unimaginable without Gorbachev's decisions as leader of the Soviet Union. In that sense, he's a transformational figure in the 20th century.
Was there a particular decision, or give us a sense of the risk that he took in order to move the Soviet Union away and into modernity?
It was a huge personal risk. Most Soviet leaders hung on to power until their death, with just a few exceptions, and he probably could have had a very long and stable career as leader if he hadn't wanted to change things. But he wanted to shake up the system. He thought it wasn't working, and he started to experiment, and eventually things spun out of his control. But it was all with an eye towards improving life for people in the Soviet Union and for ending the Cold War and ending the threat of nuclear war.
Gorbachev dealt with two American presidents, principally President Reagan. How important was their relationship? Obviously, Reagan was quite skeptical of a Soviet leader, but they did grow to develop a relationship, and then George Herbert Walker Bush had a relationship as well. But how important was that relationship with Reagan?
The Reagan relationship is really important, and I think sometimes misunderstood. I think people often think that it was the Cold Warrior Reagan in the early years of his presidency that was most important. But what's really important, I think, was his willingness to recognize that Gorbachev was serious about wanting to end the arms race and willingness to partner with him to sign a series of monumental nuclear arms control treaties.
And since the dissolution of the Soviet Union, what has Gorbachev been doing?
He's basically been in forced retirement for a very long time. He's got his foundation that he worked to fund and sort of publicize his legacy. He ran for president of Russia, actually, in 1996 and got 0.5% of the vote. But he did nurture also independent media. The paper Novaya Gazeta, it's called, that unfortunately was shut down when the war started, but that was another one of his legacies. So he was a symbol of a period of greater freedom for many people, although for others a symbol of collapse and humiliation.
And so as a final question, just along those lines, Vladimir Putin has said the dissolution of the Soviet Union was the greatest geopolitical catastrophe of the 20th century. So for him, how is Gorbachev seen, and what would Gorbachev's kind of legacy be among the common people of Russia?
I think Putin would not have a very positive attitude towards Gorbachev. I mean, he was respectful, as he had to be for a former president, but it's clear that he himself as a leader is trying to turn back the clock, institute a much more repressive political system, trying to expand the borders of Russia in the very bloody imperial war in Ukraine right now. Whereas Gorbachev, who was someone who was willing to allow the Soviet bloc to collapse, allow the Soviet Union to collapse rather than plunge the world into bloody war. So in that sense, there's a very sharp contrast to the hope that people felt in 1991 and where we are now with Vladimir Putin as president of Russia.
All right, Brian Taylor, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.